to do the introduction. And so with a great round of applause, let me invite His Excellency Ambassador Ohene Ejekum to introduce His Excellency, the next President of the Republic. Let's give His Excellency Ambassador, the indefatigable, the hardworking, the courageous Ambassador Ohene Ejekum to introduce the next President of the Republic of Ghana.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, all family members. I don't think that our candidate, amongst the several other candidates, needs any introduction whatsoever. I believe you all agree with me. A few months ago, we submitted our candidate's intention to our party executives that we wanted our candidate to contest the presidential primaries. This morning, or maybe this afternoon, our team did what we were expected to do in accordance with the rules, the regulations, and the guidelines of our party, and presented our forms to our party executives. These forms were received and acknowledged by our General Secretary, General Mosquito. It was felt that it would be appropriate for our flag bearer to have an interaction with our members and, of course, the media. And that's why we are here. Again, as I said, he doesn't need introduction, but let me state this, as I've said again, time and again, that if this great party wants to win the 2020 elections, then there can be only and only one candidate who can lead us into battle and win that election. There's only one person. We are not saying all the others are not qualified. Of course they are, I am told today, and we saw the convoy of a few of other contestants. Very exciting moment. But as far as Comet, as my great leader said, we believe very strongly that the majority of the regions that we have visited, and so far we have visited 7 of them, remaining 3, and that's giving you an update. We have to do Western region, Eastern region, and the Volta region. Let me assure you that in all the 7 regions that we have visited, in all the responses, the reaction of the overwhelming majority of our delegates from the grassroots, the branches, the constituencies, and the regions have indicated to us that they will give our candidate the overwhelming support that he needs so that we can go into battle united and strengthened in our determination to win the next election. So, my good friends, let me introduce somebody who doesn't need any introduction whatsoever. The only one with the skills, the knowledge, the experience, the only one person that the NDC of him. The MPP is so scared that we hear people taking him to court and so on. The only one person. And his name, very simple, JDM. My good friends, I now have the distinguished pleasure to invite our candidate, John Dramani Mahama, to talk to you as members of his family and to let you know what he has in store for our party and for this country, which is suffering from the painful policies of the MPP government. Your Excellency, you are kindly and humbly invited to come over to the podium and talk to us. Arise, arise up, ye patrons of the land.
Aware and seek your future. Development our goal. From vision to vision, the NDC shall lead. Stable democrat, Ghana, our strength in unity. From vision to vision, the NDC shall lead. Stable democrat, Ghana, our strength in unity.
Thank you very much. Can I kindly ask that we rise again humbly and pay respect to two great personalities who have played a very integral part in the legacy that the NDC has bequeathed to this country, but who unfortunately are no more with us. And I speak of our father and uncle, His Excellency Professor John Amissah Mills, and my own Vice President, Papa Kwesi Bekwin Amissah Arthur. May we observe just a minute silence in their honor. May their gentle souls rest in perfect peace. Thank you. Kindly resume your seats. Thank you very much. My brothers and sisters, I wish to thank you for the wonderful show of solidarity, your presence here at the Trade Fair Center and earlier at the headquarters of our party to join me to submit my completed presidential nomination forms has indeed been a great inspiration. It conveys a clear message that the rank and file of our party is yearning for victory in the election of 2020. And I'm grateful to you for believing in me as the candidate who will work with you to deliver victory in that election. I thank all of you for your contribution towards our fundraising efforts. You've demonstrated that the party members, supporters, sympathizers, and ordinary Ghanaians are willing and able to contribute their widow's mite to the progress of the party. Let me urge the leadership of our party to seize this opportunity and nurture the spirit of fundraising within our party. About 2 years ago, December 2016, I faced the solemn task of conceding an election in sober acceptance of the verdict expressed by the good people of Ghana. At the end of an intense bruising contest, the people conferred the honor of their mandate on the new patriotic party, NPP, in earnest expectation that the incoming administration will make good on their numerous one-a-day campaign promises. I respected the verdict of the people and appreciated it for its significance. It was a hard thing to do, and it was a deeply humbling experience. I was sincere in my hopes that the new government will be successful in the great undertaking that was before them. I still am, but I was gutted by the missed opportunity to see through an agenda that I genuinely believe would address the most intractable fundamental problems that belie our nation's chronic difficulties. The loss afforded me the opportunity for a solemn reflection about a life spent in public service in many different parts. I have been blessed to play a part in Ghana's story. I found myself grateful to the Almighty God who raised me up to those heights, and to the people of this nation whose love and trust have been my constant strength through these great many years of public service. My brothers and sisters, I was at a crossroads in my life. The temptation of a return to private life was enticing. The promise of spending time with my family and close friends, a rare thing during those hectic years in office, was a very welcome prospect. And spending time away from the often vicious, unforgiving enterprise of our national politics was equally very attractive. But in those many months of contemplation, I also rediscovered the first principles of my personal and political beliefs. The tenets of my Christian faith reassured me that day in and day out, my God and Savior takes me from one degree of reflection to another. My belief in politics of personal responsibility reminds me of the need for self-appraisal at all times. And so, after much deliberation, I believe that I'm even better prepared now to carry the standard of the National Democratic Congress and the great political tradition for which it stands into the presidential election of 2020. I did not make the decision to enter the contest in isolation. I consulted broadly with all levels of our party, from the grassroots, who are our lifeblood, to the elders on whose shoulders I stand. I sought the wisdom of our chiefs and the counsel of our political religious leaders. I solicited the views of business captains and leaders amongst Ghana's trade and professional associations, as well as the broader perspective of everyday Ghanaians. They all did me the courtesy of offering me frank, constructive critique of my own strengths and my past shortcomings, as well as those of my administration and our party as a whole. In truth, the encouragement and support for my decision to seek a second full term in office from the vast majority of these persons has been overwhelming and assuring. And I wish to thank them, and indeed all of you here, for believing in my capabilities, my experience, and my passionate desire to lead our party to reclaim the trust and mandate of the good people of Ghana. Yet, I also truly respect and equally appreciate the views of those who, whether in the public space or in private conversations, express some misgivings about my decision to re-enter the political contest. I wish for all such persons to know that their advice was not lost on me, and that I indeed intend to prove myself worthy of their confidence and to assuage their fears in the months ahead. I don't promise, I prove. I'm running because even though we did not succeed in 2016, I learned a great many lessons. And yes, There is indeed a benefit from failure. The campaign tour, which I started in August, has so far taken me to the Central, Northern, Upper East, Upper West, Brong-Ahafo, Greater Accra, and Ashanti regions. And very soon, I'll be with you in the Western, Eastern, and Volta regions. My message has focused largely on internal issues such as strengthening the NDC party and building a renewed sense of purpose. The results of the 2016 elections showed a significant decline in our votes relative to the 2012 election outcome. Apathy, discontent, the feeling of neglect were some of the factors that accounted for this decline. I intend to address these, and the party structures will be used to the fullest. We will also bear in mind as I said, the party structures will be used to the fullest. We will also bear in mind the business aspects of the lives of our own people. I'm fully committed to uniting our party and will work with the party leadership to bring everyone on board. Let me emphasize that I commit myself to working closely with the structures of the party to explore innovative ways to resource the party while promoting transparency and accountability. I'll place emphasis on improving the mobilizing capacity of our vibrant women and youth wings. I'll place emphasis on vigilance with voter registration, vigilance on polling day, vigilance in resource collation, and vigilance against all forms of electoral manipulation by our opponents. I also pledge to commit myself to party discipline and to make the party supreme at all times. To make the party supreme is to respect the grassroots of our party, to give honor and recognition where it is due, to let our decisions and actions reflect the broader long-term interests of all segments of the party. We make the party supreme when we accord respect to one another and are each other's keeper. I'll continue to treat all my fellow aspirants with decorum, because when all is said and done, we will need each other for the election of 2020. I commit myself to a program of mentorship to prepare our young people for positions of responsibility and to develop the next generation of NDC leaders after we are gone. I will work with the party school to deepen understanding of our ideology of social democracy, to inform policy of government and our own behavior and attitudes. I will work with the party executives to ensure that we have befitting and comfortable offices to host our secretariats at the constituency and the regional levels. I'll work with the party to seek a new engagement with the media, pursuant to the principles of truth, fairness, and objectivity. And I'll continue to tap into the wisdom of our elders and harness the vast experience of persons whose pioneering work, tireless effort, immense knowledge, and know-how in governance are recognized not only nationally but internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, I offer my experience, my skill, my energy, and unyielding spirit on the campaign trail, my passion and vision to lead this party to a resounding victory in 2021. To a resounding victory in 2020 and to see an inauguration of a new NDC government on 7 January 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, especially in the sense that nothing is impossible to achieve in this life. That when setbacks come your way, you step back and you step forward again with renewed determination and move on to greater heights. To all my fellow Akatamansonians, when you elect me, I will fight hard and work day and night to ensure our victory, and work to address the problems of unemployment and the very high cost of living this country is currently going through. Together, we will present our countrymen and women a renewed and reinvigorated NDC, a party ready and able to lead Ghana beyond the unprecedented economic hardships of the present hour, beyond the rising unemployment and despair of our youth, beyond the closure and collapse of financial institutions and businesses, beyond the dishonesty and nonchalance of the current administration, and beyond the family and clan syndrome that has rightly shocked and outraged so many in its scope and scale. My brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. The NPP has been in power for close to 2 years. They began their tenure with a groundswell of goodwill from Ghanaians who believed that they would keep faith with them and deliver on the litany of promises they had doled out during the campaign of 2016. And although I harbored honest doubts about the practicality of many of these half-baked promises, I hope for their success. A rising tide, after all, lifts all boats. When boats are in a harbor and the tide rises, it lifts all the boats. And so we had hoped that these promises would be fulfilled. My reservations were not born out of malice or cynicism, but out of a concern that those promises were made for the purpose of populist pandering, that they would inevitably fail to address the fundamental issues of our society. Worse still, I feared that the NPP's policy agenda would compound those problems and that their petty politics would turn back the clock of progress for which we had so long labored. The cracks in the foundation are beginning to show, and the cracks are growing by the day. We see it in our healthcare system. Its present diagnosis, the no-bed syndrome, is an indictment of leadership. All of us here are familiar with the harrowing accounts of desperately ill persons being turned away from our hospitals in urban areas for lack of hospital beds on which to treat them. I imagine there are some in this hall who have known that indignity firsthand or suffered along with their loved ones as they did. We know of the fatal consequences of this state of affairs. Without a doubt, there are chronic problems in our health system that every administration of the Fourth Republic has sought to address with varying degrees of success. Health worker shortages, inadequacy of our fiscal infrastructure, and fiscal constraints and access, these are but a few of the critical bottlenecks we have all striven to address in our period in office. My administration prioritized them. We took action to increase healthcare access through a program of building infrastructure and facilities that aspired to bring healthcare to the people's doorstep wherever they may be in our nation. Our tenure saw the completion and commissioning of several top-tier medical facilities in the country. Unfortunately, many of these now stand unattended to, monuments to the petty partisanship of the day, while our people persist in their despair. It is beneath our dignity to allow this to continue. And instead of prioritizing the needs of the health sector, the NPP government chooses to acquire drones to supply blood, a decision which has been roundly condemned by many, including the Ghana Medical Association and the Ghana Association of Medical Laboratory Scientists. Government should get its priority right by spending the limited resources on more essential interventions other than copying innovations without relevance to the reality of Ghana's current needs. Ladies and gentlemen, we see the cracks in government accountability. In the throes of the energy crisis, we sought to stabilize the nation's power supply with the Ameri and other power projects. The situation we experienced in those trying times, where we were at the mercy of an acute crisis. And so with these works, we tried to resolve the problem by putting in extra generation. The cumulative effect of underinvestment in the critical infrastructure for power generation across the decades is what landed us in this quandary. We were therefore focused on medium and long-term planning for the energy sector, but we're also keenly aware that more immediate solutions were also necessary. And this critical intervention of bringing emergency generation, which eventually helped us to climb out of the crisis, was ridiculed by our opponents, the NPP. And yet, their own handling of this same project and the furore that it sparked has been abysmal, to say the least. Months down the line, the fundamentals of the government's energy policy have proven to be weak, and the return of doomsaw has clearly begun to expose the NPP administration. My brothers and sisters, we see the cracks in the pluralist traditions of our young democracy. We in the NDC have continued to voice genuine concerns about those parts of their policy agenda that have betrayed a gross lack of foresight and a poverty of pragmatic thinking. We have done so to give voice to the frustration of the masses of everyday Ghanaians who seek only to have their own concerns heard and acknowledged. But these constructive criticisms have been ignored by the government that believes itself to have a monopoly on knowledge. The vision of free universal education is a strongly held principle of our Social Democratic Party. Our position of the free SHS policy is contained in the Constitution of this country. We are not in opposition to affordable education, but we believe that it must be implemented properly. Every child in Ghana is entitled by rights to an education that adequately prepares them for the challenges and opportunities of the modern world. And access to secondary education is essential to that. But we also believe that increased access should be matched by increased quality. The implementation of the program and the ad hoc course corrections therefore raises legitimate cause for concern. We have suggested to Nana Akufo-Addo and his government that broader consultation with stakeholders, including the parents of the hundreds of thousands of students whose future depend on our leadership, getting this right, would help the process. These have all been ignored and rubbished as anti-government propaganda, and we have been labeled as naysayers. When there's nothing more to do than common sense ideas discussed around the dinner tables of Ghanaian homes and in our offices every day and in our media, these are things that our people are discussing. These are ideas that their own Minister of Finance, who knows the full truth about our fiscal state, has publicly championed. But sadly, the pettiness and insecurity of the government is evident in the absolute refusal to consider these suggestions simply because it is coming from what they think are perceived opponents. So the administration continues on this uncertain road and carries along it with the promise of the future of hundreds of thousands of our young people. The haphazard implementation of the free SHS is causing a lot of anxiety and inconvenience to students and their parents and guardians. And as I've said on the campaign trail a few times, when we come into office, we're going to put in place the necessary measures to better the implementation of the free SHS program. I'll also work hard to abolish the double track system in the shortest possible time. We will do this by investing massively in the expansion of school infrastructure, such such as additional classroom blocks and dormitories, and the completion of the 200 community day senior high schools and the 200 community day senior high schools, popularly known as the E-blocks, that we started to enable all our children attend school at the same time and have adequate contact hours with their teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing the cracks in the foundation of our economy. The NPP told tall tales with lofty rhetoric about the prospects for our economy. They went to town over my administration's decision to seek financing for infrastructure projects by borrowing on the capital markets. Yet when we did so, it involved a well-planned, well-managed use of the credit facilities to upgrade our ailing physical, social, and economic infrastructure to meet the needs of a modern middle-income economy. And the fruits of those efforts are visible all around the country, in the new clinics and district hospitals, in affordable housing, in the new roads, the railways, in our expanded energy generation, in the mechanization of our agriculture, in access to potable water and electricity, in our telecommunications industry, in aviation, in the expansion of our seaports. These are all visible, tangible results of the borrowing we made from the capital markets. All these and more were made possible by a well-thought-out policy agenda. So many that the government has had to hijack, so many of these projects that the current government has had to hijack some of our projects to commission and recommission all over the place to be able to show something to the Ghanaian people. Our government prized principle over popularity and endeavored to make decisions about every peso borrowed on those grounds of principle. Today, Ghanaians pay far more for fuel and transportation than they paid under the NDC. Unemployment among our youth continued to rise against the backdrop of bankruptcy and collapsing businesses. Importers were promised easier times with reduction on import duties. They've ended up paying far more than they ever paid under the NDC administration. Business associations continue to wail at the impact of the plethora of taxes they are being subjected to. Our people are suffering. Rising poverty levels is creating anxiety, stress, and depression. We knew the NPP had no intention of honoring its lofty promises, but the extent of retrogression is simply unbelievable. We cannot in good conscience let the current state of affairs continue without standing up to do our part. And so, my brothers and sisters, I am ready. I am very ready. And I know you are ready too. Together, we are ready to work hard to provide jobs for our youth, as well as reduce the high cost of living in this country. My brothers and sisters, let me be clear. I myself do not claim perfection. While we remain proud of our record in government and the work we were able to do, we will be the first to admit that there were difficulties with some policies, though well-intentioned, were perhaps misunderstood and could have been implemented differently in order to get better and different outcomes. Those difficulties and lessons drawn from them will inform the formulation and implementation of our future policies when Ghanaians return us to power. We have learned our lessons, and we promise Ghanaians we will do even better. But I will not engage in empty promises, sloganeering, populism, convenient lies, and grand deception to win political power. I will not do that. I may not always say what Ghanaians want to hear. I may not always say what you want to hear. But I will always speak the truth. Every government faces challenges. And the best way to deal with these challenges is to be honest and truthful to the citizens of your nation. Because if you are truthful and honest and they understand the challenges that the government is going through, they are prepared to stand by you in resolving those issues. I, John Dramani Mahama, John Dramani Mahama, I hold Ghanaians in such respect that I will never lie and pretend to them that our situation is good when it is otherwise. I don't promise, I prove, and I deliver. My brothers and sisters, when my party chooses me, and note that I said when, not if. When my party chooses me in the upcoming flag bearer elections, the road towards a better Ghana will gather fresh momentum. There might be no instant victories, but we will give our youth hope by making their need for job and opportunities to market their skills our #1 priority. Upon the conclusion of our presidential primaries, which inshallah we will emerge victorious, we will quickly get together and develop a credible and pragmatic program to ease the hardships and create jobs for our young people. Fellow Akatamansonians, we have hard work before us. We have been there before. And I know it will be tough, but we shall overcome. There will be distractions and petty political maneuvering to discredit us, but we cannot be dissuaded or discouraged. The stakes are too high to lose focus. And let me notify our detractors that it does not matter their penchant for retribution against those who criticize the MPP government. We will speak openly and publicly, come what may. Because we'll be speaking as citizens of this country, and our voice will amplify the concerns and aspirations of the people of Ghana. The DNA of NDC is a combination of two interesting slogans. The first one, never say die until the bones are rotten. And the second one, Ukuma Pema, Apembaba. My fellow Akatamansonians, my fellow Ghanaians, I thank all of you most sincerely for your presence here in your numbers. This has strengthened and inspired me, and indeed I am humbled by your show of support. I promise you that I'll serve you better than I have ever done before. I am ready for the battle. Come go with me. For united, we shall be victorious. United we stand, divided we fall. I wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, knowing fully well that most Ghanaian families are going to go through the driest Christmas they have ever experienced in the history of Ghana, because they are going through excruciating economic difficulties. We will continue to put pressure on this government to push back on their insensitive economic policies, even as we offer hope of better times under the new ND administration, which, God willing, will assume office on 7 January 2021. With Christ in the vessel, we smile at the storm. I thank you all very much. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. May God bless us all. Thank you.
And with a yo-ho-ho and a boboli-bobo, the former President John Mahama brings his address to an end. He was speaking at what was described as a press conference where he declared and outlined his intentions and reasons for wanting to seek the mandate of the people of Ghana one more time. He started off, of course, by admitting that things had not all gone to plan while he was in office, but he talked about the lessons that he learned from those experiences. He went on to outline some of the changes he would seek to make if he were to be given another chance at the presidency. He talked about bringing fast track to an end as quickly as possible. He spent a lot of time also outlining what he described as the failings of the current government. He talked about hardship, economic hardship, and intended, in his words, to turn things around if he is given another opportunity. He ended by wishing Ghanaians a Merry Christmas, but emphasizing that he predicts the driest Christmas in the history of this country. Those were his words. There's a lot more for us to dissect and understand from what he spent the past 45 minutes outlining. We'll be speaking to Amissah Arthur, who is there on the scene, to get some of the detail of what the former president has shared in this address. It was heavily attended by members of the NDC and many supporters and sympathizers. Trade fair was the venue, and it was chosen with the reason because, of course, many people thronged to hear the former president speaking. Many dignitaries were introduced before the former president then mounted the podium after an introduction by his campaign manager. And of course, his campaign manager suggested the man needs no introduction. To a large extent, very true. Nobody is unaware of former President John Mahama. We're able to join Amissah Arthur now via telephone. She is on the scene and has been paying rapt attention to what the former president had to share in this ceremony. Amissah, thank you for your time. A remarkable event in and of itself, wasn't it? Amissah, can you hear me? Right, we're hoping to connect in a more effective way with Amissah Arthur as soon as possible. She is at the trade fair site where the former president, John Dramani Mahama, has just been addressing party faithfuls and supporters. Amissah, I wonder, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, Pedro.
Fantastic. That's all right. Now, Amissah, this is an unusual event in and of itself, is it not? I mean, it was this...
Very unusual, Pedro. And now one of the first questions I posed to the organizers, that it looks like we've been following politics for some time now, and we've not seen anything like this before. And what they tell me is that it shows their readiness and their preparedness for John Dramani Mahama to take power in 2020. And that if any of the candidates want to do things, they can also go ahead and do things. But this was specially organized by the John Mahama campaign team, and that it is not something that is being done by the party, but it's just by the campaign team. So if any of the candidates also wish to do things, they can also do things, and that is just to show their preparedness as a campaign team. That's what they tell me when I talk to find out why they put together this event. But it's more like a mini rally after he filed his nomination, just to interact with the party and to explain to them. They tell me that since he lost power, he hasn't really engaged the media and the party members, hasn't really spoken to people, and he was actually brooding after some time. But this is the time for him to tell the people why he wants to lead the party again after the convention was done, and then he finally decides to lead the party. So this is what this event essentially is to address, to tell the people why he thinks he wants to lead the party again and what his new plans are to be able to lead the party and to wrestle power from the NPP. And that's why this event was put together, Kujo.
Right. Now, he didn't mince words in criticizing the current administration. What are some of the highlights and the faults that he pointed out from his perspective? Okay,
so a number of areas, four key areas, I would say, from my last count. He talked about education. He started with health, then talked about power and energy, then it was to the economy, and addressing urgent issues in the country. On the area of health, for instance, it's become very topical, and we know that the drone issue is, something that is very topical that people are talking about. And he says that the government should stop copying blindly, and that we all know the health challenges that the country faces. Obviously, there are cracks in the foundation to begin with, and cite the no-bed syndrome itself. And that it looks like if the government wants to do things new in the health sector, copying blindly will not be the way to go, and says that they should start listening to the people because people are against it. In the area of power and energy, for instance, he cites their Mary and says that they were focused on long and short-term measures for the power sector, and that the handling and the furore surrounding this Ameri deal, for instance, is rather appalling because they went round and round it, and now they are actually taking it up. And that constructive criticism were actually ignored by this NDC government, and that is not the way to go for them. In the area of education, also another interesting area, very topical area, he talked about the free estate test. You recall that during his campaign, he raised this issue about the free estate test and how they will review it when they come to power. We heard the president address it spot on, also told them that they are naysayers and that they didn't have anything new to offer, and when they have done something, they are now saying they'll review. And he goes on to explain what he means by review. He says that double track system will be abolished just when he comes to power. He will definitely abolish the double track system, and then also ensure that infrastructure will be improved and cite the E-blocks. We know the E-blocks are already in place, and says that we will abolish it and improve infrastructure. The area of economy also, he mentions the number of things that they think that they've also done, that the hardship in this country is unheard of, unprecedented. Christmas, he says, he talks about Christmas going to be the driest for us. He's been a prophet of doom to round up, and talks about how ready he is to be able to lead the party. He's never been ready like he's been at this point, he says. So, Kojo, it looks like, and to end it all, he adopts the slogans of Accra Hearts of Hope, never say die until the bones are rotten, and then also that of Kotoko, saying that Ukuma Pima Apimbeba, and that they will continue to openly criticize this government as citizens of this country and not with any malice, and that the government should listen. That is the only way he thinks they'll be able to bring Ghanaians out of hardship, he said, that we are going through, Kojo.
Amissah, and stay with us. We're joined in the studio, however, by the head of the politics desk, Evans Mensah. Now, Evans, good to see you, first of all.
Good to see you,
clearly this is an unusual event. We've already outlined that. But I wonder, looking into what would be the political strategy for a man who seeks an office that he has lost, what would you say is the thinking behind this particular event and what he's hoping it'll achieve?
I've always said, on record to have said that he must present himself as a reformed person. In other words, I failed in aspects once when I had the opportunity. I have learnt my lesson, and that is making me a stronger person. That's why you need to vote for me. And I've been waiting for the day he will couch this properly. Today he attempted at doing that. And if you hear him say that when we were in power, I must admit we're the last people to claim we're perfect, and that we make some mistakes, we've learnt our lesson. You heard him say that. We've learnt our lesson. There were policies we introduced that people misunderstood, that didn't work as well as they should, although they were well-intentioned, and that essentially we've learnt our lessons. Those were phrases that I kept on hearing today. And that because of that, we are better placed to fix those problems and do better than we did in the past. So he articulated that today. And one phrase that I saw emerging, and I'm pretty sure in the next few days it will begin to emerge as his catchphrase for John Mahama going forward, says, I don't promise, I prove. And you can see that this has been couched. That was a difficult thing for them to do because we know that he lost significantly. Historically, it hasn't happened before, the sort of margin that he lost with in the 2016 elections. Your criticisms about the economic policies that they rolled out and how it affected people, that it didn't listen enough. And so the people, the voters, spoke in its loudest terms on December 6, 2016. If you want to come back, you cannot come and claim that you were the best leader in 2016 by the 20 when you exited, because that would actually be in discord with the votes that the people delivered. The only way you could come back is to say, listen, I made mistakes, which is what he's done today. The bigger question is with the audience that he's seeking to address. Not the audience in the room today, because he's not pitching. Those people are already converted people. He's preaching to the folks, almost 1 million, either who didn't show up to vote for him because they were disappointed with him, or those who just didn't like his way of leadership. He's speaking to them, appealing to them, presenting himself. He's almost putting himself against this government and saying, if you don't like this government, what they're doing, look at somebody who's been there, made the same mistakes, but has had time 2 years, 4 years to reflect, and has seen the challenges, and is willing now to be humble. And listen, so I've said, if he's going to present himself as a reformed person, he must present the new John Mahama. I was looking out today to see, how does he define who the new John Mahama is? One of the things that struck me is, it says in one of the lines that I will seek a renewed relationship with the media. It struck me because I'm a journalist, I can't help it.
Of course.
But one of the biggest criticisms against John Mahama and his government was that they were not media friendly. His people, they boycotted us, for example. It's a clear example of that. People were assaulted in this government.
He alleged a media cabal.
Exactly, alleged media cabal. The relationship wasn't great. But he mentioned that today and saying, so the new John Mahama is a John Mahama that repairs his relationship with the media. A new John Mahama is a John Mahama that is humble, that listens. He presented all these things today, but the verdict really is, will people believe him? I guess it's the biggest challenge he will have going into 2020. Really, the primary is a foregone conclusion. Biggest challenge is, will the audience, will the electorate buy what he's selling, buy the reform Mahama, or do you think this guy is tricking us again? I think that's his biggest challenge.
Now, I guess once you've raised his challenge, we ought to look at what the response ought to be. Now, just before that, let me quickly say, we will be joined by Dr. Kobi Mensah via Skype very soon. He describes himself as a political marketer, but he's been paying attention to how this has all been unfolding, and we'll get his thoughts shortly. But let's now look at the other side. Now, on Saturday, we heard Nana Kumia speaking for the NPP on Newsfile, talking about how John Mahama would be the easiest to beat out of all of those putting themselves up for candidacy from the NDC. There are some who saw that as a bit of a bluff. But now that we've heard what John Mahama appears to plan for his campaign, that sort of reformed, new, humbled, renegotiating relationships, Mahama, is he going to be the pushover that the NPP seem to think he'll be?
I honestly think that in politics, there are no pushovers. If the minute you think your opponent's a pushover, that's half of the way to defeat already, because you don't take anything for granted. We've seen people who believed they were, even the MPP has experienced that before. In 2008, they were overconfident. They thought Kufuor had done so much, the economy was doing well, there was free, there was NHIS, there was free maternal care, there was LEAP. They mentioned a lot, and they took it for granted that it's almost automatic. Our opponents, this is a man who then, Professor Mills, had run 2 times, had lost. There's no way he's going to win a 3rd time. We're gonna it's a throw in the park, and they pushed them to a 2nd round.
Indeed.
And they lost. The margins were fine, and yet they lost. If you don't learn a lesson from that and tell yourself that nobody in the context of politics is a pushover, there are no absolutes in politics. You are half day to defeat. So I'll be very surprised that any of those fantastic brains in the MPP, as well as in the NDC, will think that anybody's is a pushover. Having said that, though, John Mahama has a huge baggage. But today, he's owning the baggage. He's beginning to own the baggage. I think we need to begin to analyze the text of what he said. Is he doing it wholeheartedly? Or he's doing it because really, I think that's what the audience is going to look for, the electorate. The genuineness of it is going to be important. So I heard him today say something about the policies that they put out that didn't produce the right results. And then he used phrases such as, although they were well-intentioned, they were misunderstood. I scratched my head when I heard that. I'm like, if you really want to present us as a reform candidate, you're telling the electorates
that they didn't get you.
They didn't get you. That it's because they didn't understand the policy. Whoever put that in his speech did him a great disservice. Because the guys, the middle class guys, they will tear this apart like we are doing tonight. They're going to be picking on these words because it's a genuineness. If you say you did wrong, you have to wholeheartedly accept that I did wrong. Then people can see into your soul and say, this guy is reformed. But when you start throwing words about as if the guy who's going to judge your honesty misunderstood the reason why you conclude yourself that you made mistakes, you making a mistake in couching that message. That's what I thought. So for me, yes, that baggage, he's trying to own it, but is it wholehearted yet? And that maybe the guys who are planning the MPP might look at and hype or amplify, right? To the guys who probably are missing these points and say, you can't really trust him. Can you trust us? Can you trust him? But that is, if I'm in the opposition, that's what I'm about. Can you trust a man, an ex-convict? It's a classic example. People come from prison and they are reformed, but they struggle to get jobs. Sometimes you give one of them opportunity and they astound you. This guy is really good. We see those examples 1 in a million. But then fundamentally, your trust for the guy is broken. So when you are trying to fix it, you have to be all in or not in at all. And that's why I guess if anybody in the MPP is thinking can be a pushover, you look at that and it might give you confidence because he's carrying baggage. Between now and 2020 is a long time.
Yeah.
Can he come to the point where he owns these mistakes that he said and the lessons?
Well, to be fair to him, he has come from the point where people thought it would be the most absurd thing for him to attempt to run for office again, to the point where it is the reality, the national reality, that former President John Mahama wants to be president again, and he is actually taking steps to make it happen. He's filed his nomination forms and paid 300,000 cedis.
The reason why, maybe I'll say just a quick point to what you just said, is that he may stand, as of today, he stands a better chance than he did in the first month of 2017 when everybody wrote him off. Is because if you look at 2016, the election results, a lot of the 1 million votes that they didn't get, a lot of it are diehard NDC guys who didn't show up to vote.
Yeah.
That's true. Because I wasn't a vote, I saw it myself, there was apathy. They won't vote for MPP, but they won't vote for him as well. So you're losing your core constituency, so they lost that vote. And so so these guys, they're easier to turn around than the middle class guys. So between then and now, the party have probably been galvanized by all that has happened, the challenges with incumbency that the MPP is facing. The president himself was in US and said, we're having challenges.
Yeah.
These things difficult times, exactly. These things can then galvanize the base. So he might recoup some of those votes that didn't go his way in 2016. So if you look at just that, he is more of a force today than he was purely because he's galvanized the base, he's done all these regional walks, etc., and people seem to be gravitating around him. This is the base. So just like Trump, I mean, use your base, galvanize your base first, and use that to sort of win the House of the Middle. So maybe that is why you say he's better today as a candidate, a presumptive candidate, than he was a year ago. The next hurdle is getting the rest of the populace who don't vote A or B, but they really decide elections going forward.
Indeed. Now, let's spare a moment for the other candidates who seek the flag bearership of the NDC. Well, 3 others also put their money where their mouths are today. Joshua Alabi, Sylvester Mensah, and Alban Bagbin. Now, let's call a spade a spade. Are these gentlemen wasting their time?
I think so. I think so. It's unfortunate, but I think that's what it is. But listen, in politics, you would sometimes sacrifice something that people may think impossible if you have a plan. So far as you have a plan, it doesn't matter if what you do today. In politics, that's what it is. So do you have a long-term plan or you have a short-term one? And I doubt if any of the guys who've actually paid the 300,000. Remember, a lot of them didn't pay because for them, there's no hope. A lot of these guys who've paid, I bet, have long-term plans. Long-term plans, a few possibilities. One, I want to pitch myself today. I know I'm not going to win against him, but I want to pitch myself today in the race for a future purpose, a future campaign. When John Mahama, assuming he wins, he just goes for one term, 4 years. Then he's out of the scene. He can't come again. But in the next run for the primary, I've done it in the last one, so my name is already out there. You ride on that. Yeah. So there are those in this campaign who have that long-term vision. It's going to cost them a lot, but you have to sacrifice to get there. That's politics. The those in this who probably are hoping, if I pitch myself here, and I'm probably second in the race, and give John Mahama a good run for your money, he must consider me. He cannot ignore me in the choice of his running mate because, again, fundamentally, as I've said in John Mahama's case, we still need to galvanize the party's base and get the guys who didn't vote for us, who are apathetic, to come on board. And this is a campaign, a primary of delegates, the core NDC guys. So if I do well against him, say I get 10% of the votes, that's significant. So John Mahama would thinking, if we need these guys who didn't vote for us in 2016, if this guy got 10% of the votes, or 15 or whatever it is, I need him as my candidate, and my running mate, for example, to help me sort of scoop those other votes and galvanize the base going forward. So there are people in the campaign who may be doing that, who may have that in mind. So you may say they're wasting your time, but it depends on the plan. Do you have a plan? If you have a plan, it doesn't matter what you do now. So far as your plan, if you I know I'm not going to win, but I need one of these 2 things to happen to me going forward. It doesn't matter what you do now because you know that the plan is, this is a part of the grand plan.
In our last 30 seconds, you've highlighted how important the role of running mate has suddenly become in the NDC, because I think, however you calculate it, whomever is picked for that position will be the next flag bearer for this party. But is that going to be the main driver for John Mahama's choice, or will he be more interested in who will help him win the battle, 2020?
Well, it has to be both. It has to be both. You cannot say just that, because if you only get all your guys who didn't go for you in 2016 on board, you still not win the elections. At best, you move into a second round. So it has to be both. So you need somebody who can give you both, who appeals to that base, but also has some national appeal to the middle class, who can help you sweep these two constituencies. And so, and there are people in this campaign who has those qualities. Alabi will pitch himself as such. I mean, he's somebody that, because he's an academic, people in the middle class might like him. And he does his ground game well. He might also get the NDC guys, grassroots, to like him. And so he's there. You can talk about the others. May have the same qualities. Pio Gabra, Sylvester Mensah. So he must look at both. And so it's going to be a challenge for him. And it's the NDC's challenge. Yeah, well, we welcome a challenge. So we'll certainly be giving you continued coverage of the NDC's travails as they seek to find their next leader. Thank you so much, Evans Mensah, for that. There'll be even more analysis on this topic and others on the JoyNews channel. Stay with us for that. But right now, we're able to connect with Dr. Kobi Mensah via Skype. Now, Dr. Mensah is, well, he describes himself as a political marketer, which means, of course, he looks at the marketing and promotional aspect of politics, in addition to many other aspects. Dr. Mensah, good afternoon, and thank you for your time. It's a bit difficult to hear you, Dr. Mensah. I don't know whether we need to adjust our microphones, but you appear to be speaking to us from somewhere where Christmas is being taken very seriously. I see a Christmas tree in the background. Now, you've paid attention today to the filing of nominations by 4 of the aspirants to the NDC. Preliminary thoughts on how the day has unfolded, especially with John Mahama's press conference? Right, we need to work to fix the quality of that Skype connection, and we will do that immediately. In the meantime, though, why don't we check out what one of the other aspirants had to say when he filed his nomination earlier. Here's Joshua Alabi.
I take this opportunity to thank the founders and elders of our party for their timely intervention in resolving disputes, the process of the context. I also would like to thank the National Executive for the good reception and programs they have for us in the process. As you are aware, my name is Joshua Alabi, a university professor, the son of a farmer, a former tractor operator, a former student leader, a former sports administrator, a former member of parliament, a former minister for Greater Accra region, a former minister for Northern region, a former director of Accra Great Olympics, a former general secretary of the Ghana League Club Association, Dhaka, a former member of the management board of the Ghana Football Association, a former coordinator and manager of the senior national team, the Black Stars, a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies. I've just presented my documents, and for me today is historic. The road to the Flagstaff House. I've been trained and groomed by the people of this country, and with the wealth of experience that I have, it is time for me to lead the National Democratic Congress, help transform our party, and give hope to the people of this country. In the process of my work, I was once the chairman of the SNIT board. I was the chairman of HFC Bank, now the Republic Bank. I was the chairman of Accra Polytechnic, now Accra Technical University. I was the chairman of the Social Science Committee for Ghana Commission for UNESCO, and chairman for other organizations. I served very well, and in the process, I received a lot of awards. In 2012, the Chartered Institute of Marketing made me the Marketing Man of the Year for the whole country in recognition of my job. In 2013, Imani Ghana awarded me the most influential public sector leader in the whole country, including sitting presidents. In 2013, the All African Students Union made me the African Best Vice Chancellor of the Year. And in 2016, the Republic of Ghana gave me the highest award of the land, the Order of the Voter. I've presented all this because it is believed by some members of our party that we don't have the men. But I'm here to tell you, we have the men. We have a lot of men, and Joshua Labi is one of them. Our party lost the election in 2016, and before the election, they made it clear to us that they were not going to vote. As usual, we thought the teaming supporters were just threatening us, but they did that, and we lost the elections. Yes. My research with my team showed clearly that there was a disconnect between government, the party, and the grassroots. And I'm here to offer leadership to reorganize this and give hope to our teaming supporters, the grassroots, and the country as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, I've gone around the whole country and I realized that our party needs resources. It is clear that we really need resources, and that is why people like me with good leadership skills, I have to pay 300,000 Ghana cedi to present myself to lead this party. If we handle this party very well, I think in the near future, flag-bearers will not have to pay for anything. So the common man with good ideas can lead this party and lead this country to the height. I'm afraid for our party. For those who supported the amount, there will be a time, if we don't take care, we will be charging branch chairman 10,000 Ghana cedi to be chairman of the various branches. We have to work and find innovative methods to resource our party, innovative methods to rebuild our country, innovative methods to find employment for our teeming youth. We are getting to a place in this country, if you don't take care, you wake up midnight to visit the washroom, and you realize that you have a visitor in your bedroom.
Joshua Alabi there following his filing of nomination to become the flag bearer of the NDC. Now let's go across real quick and speak to the correspondent who has been there all day paying attention as everybody brings in their papers. Amissah Arthur is on the scene. Amissah, quite a day, huh? Lots of these men declaring their intentions.
It's definitely been quite a day, Kojo. Indeed, it's finally over here at the Trade Fair Center, Pavilion A, where after filing his nomination at the NDC headquarters, the former president, John Dramani Mahama, came here to interact with party members, those who supported him, his campaign members, members of the media, and the general public at large, to declare his intention, like I said earlier, why he had wanted to contest. It's been a very short program, interesting program. It's been a day of music. It's been a day of dance and, of course, speeches as well. And that's how it's been here at the Trade Fair Center. We've been trying to find out what next for the John Dramani Mahama campaign team. And they tell us that we should just keep our fingers crossed. The former president has stated that he's ready to lead the party. And that campaign has begun in earnest, hoping for the delegates of the party to, pick him or elect him as the flag bearer of the party. So that's how it's been today here at the Trade Fair Center. I'm sure you've been covering from the headquarters of the NDC as well. So largely, nominations have been filed. The media and the general public have been interacted with on the part of the John Dramani Mahama campaign team. Could you?
Now tell me, how did the crowd respond? This, as we already have clarified, is an unusual event. It was supposed to be a press conference, but there was such a large presence of supporters. Tell me about the supporters' reaction to what the former president had to share.
I must say that, just like you said, that we're hoping it was a press conference. I came here prepared, hoping to be able to get our share of asking questions as well. A number of questions we're hoping to pose to the former president, John Dramani Mahama, only to get here. And it turns out that it's not just a media interaction. I kept on asking that you say it's a media interaction, so are we going to get our opportunity to actually question him as well? But I was told that that is not going to happen, and that this one is an interaction where he will be able to tell everybody why he's contesting, and that there will be other series of media interactions that will be outlined, that people would get the opportunity to be able to interact with the former president, John Dramani Mahama. And I can say to you, just a whisper to you, Kojo, that you might be the first person to be able to interview former President John Dramani Mahama, or it might be me. You never know. But that is in the plan. But it will definitely be Joy FM and JoyNews first to be able to interact with him, Kojo.
Well, your whispers are always sweet, Amissah Arthur. Thank you ever so much for bringing us that quick wrap-up of what's going on, what's been going on at the Trade Fair site. More from you later, I hope.
Thank you. Thank you, Kojo. Thank you, Kojo. Thank you.
Well, there you go. And the Flagbearership race continues. It heats up, and we will stay with it every single step of the way, no doubt about that. 4 aspirants have made their intentions known and put their money where their mouth is. 300,000 Ghana cedis put up by each of them. Now, let's see if we can reconnect with Dr. Kobi Mensah, who is joining us via Skype. Dr. Mensah, I'm hoping you can hear me a bit clearer now. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Koyo. I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
I hope you can hear me, sir.
We can hear you too. It's great to connect with you. Clearly, you're not in Ghana. I'm feeling cold just looking at you. But we've obviously observed and witnessed the beginning of this Flagbearership race today. 4 of these individuals have put their names up and paid their money to be considered for the top position. But I asked Evans Mensah earlier whether these others, apart from John Mahama, are in essence just wasting their time. I wonder what your take is on it.
Thank you, Kojo. I think I followed the conversation between yourself and Evans. And I think Evans was right. I mean, it depends on what objectives, these candidates are seeking. Obviously, if somebody is actually seeking to become the flag bearer for this time around, then I think they're wasting their time, clearly. But of course, if they have a very long-term objective, perhaps to become the flag bearer next time or to be considered a strategic position in Mahama's leadership, then I think they are in the right game.
Right.
So,
now,
it depends on what objective they seek. They tend to seek.
Right. Now, let's talk about the NPP. Are they taking the threat of the NDC, whomever might, end up being their flag bearer, are they taking the threat seriously, or are they perhaps taking 2020 a little bit more for granted than they should?
Well, I think they are actually taking the threat seriously, especially the possibility of Mahama's leadership. I mean, that was actually transparent. I mean, that was actually evident in the last, budget reading. If you listen to the finance minister, his reading of the budget actually swayed the NDC, MPP scratching towards infrastructure. Now, clearly, that's a response, towards Mahama's candidacy. You remember in 2016, they actually said that it wasn't infrastructure that would actually, respond to people's needs. They were banking their hopes on having a very stable economy. They think they've done that. But of course, the people actually responding and saying that they cannot see the kind of, visible projects that Nanado had actually done. And obviously, if you want to talk about visible projects, then someone's memory will go down to Mahama's administration, where roads were built, schools were built, hospitals were built. And then, of course, you have a very magnificent airport, to actually demonstrate the Mahama's leadership. If that is the case, then NPP has to actually respond likewise to make sure that they could actually face Mahama boot for boot. So I think that they are taking Mahama's possible leadership seriously, and they want to respond come 2019 so that they would have something visible to show.
Now, an interesting trend throughout, the political history of the Fourth Republic, at least, is that the voter doesn't appear to be as interested in facts as they are in perception. So the Kufuor administration built all kinds of roads, including the N1. They lost. The Mahama administration constructed, in fact, they printed a green book full of infrastructure, and they still lost. It appears that at any given time, the voter goes with how they feel about the candidate, not so much what the candidate has done. Are these being considered by the NPP as they start to form their strategy? Do you see that as an important consideration?
Yeah, I agree with you, Koju. I think that what NDC actually faces is not the competition from NPP, but the competition with the voter psyche. The voter is set up to think that every leadership is supposed to have about 8 years at most. And then, of course, they want to change course. Now, I don't think that John Kufuor himself actually lost. No, he won 2 elections, and then after the 8th term, when another was supposed to take over, they decided that they have to change course. That tells you that the voter psyche is actually set on 8-term rule. And that is what NDC actually faces, that challenge to actually tell the voters that if you feel that this government hasn't performed, don't put your vote on autopilot and say 8-term rule, they have to rule for 8 years and then go away and bring somebody back. Now, the NDC has to actually fight that voter psyche of that 8-term rule. And if they can actually do that, then they can be successful. Because as we speak now, majority of people, and I think, I'm reflecting on majority of people's thinking, cannot really see, the Nanado's promises. And what makes it very challenging is that 4 years down the line is not so far. In fact, it's about 3 years down the line when Mahama was removed from office. And people have a fresh memory of what Akufo had actually promised the last 3 years and what Mahama actually did for the last 3 years. So these memories are very fresh in people's thinking, and they can actually make references to that. And that is the challenge. So if Mahama can actually convince the voters that don't put your vote on autopilot and say, yes, they should need another 4 years to rebuild this country, then of course they will be successful in removing Akufo-Addo. Because mind you, they promised 18-month transformation. And I don't think Ghanaians think that transformation has happened. So it is very real competition we have on our hands.
Right. Finally, who would make a good running mate for John Mahama if he's chosen as flag bearer?
Well, that's a very good one. I mean, just this afternoon, I was telling a friend that in my gut feeling, we don't need 100% NDC ticket. Now, that is staple, that 100% NDC ticket may not actually work for NDC. They need a coalition of the other parties. If you ask me strategically, I would go for Pakwetindo. Look, that would be a very formidable ticket, to face an incumbent. Because remember, as I told you, the psyche of the voter is 8-year-old. Now, if you want to unseat, the government, having tested, obviously Mahama for the past 4 years, and Mahama talking about a reformed Mahama, you need to show something tangible for the voters to believe that really you're going to reform. And to have a very 100% NDC staple, I don't think it will cut out for them. If they go for somebody like a coalition of the other political parties to back John, I think that would be a formidable ticket. But if you ask me strategically, I would look outside the party for a running mate.
Wow. Well, that is most definitely an interesting idea. Whether Dr. Ndum would be interested in being the running mate of John Mahama, who he has criticized intensively over the years, that's to be seen. But politics has thrown up bigger surprises than that. Dr. Kobi Mensah, thank you so much for your time with us. We hope you enjoy your trip, however cold it may be. Right. Now, there's so much more to come on The Pulse, but we don't want to cram it all down your throat. Stay where you are. We're back after these with even more.